Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our fourth day of Spectrum Conclave 2023. Happy Sunday to one and all present here. I'm very much glad to see you all present here today with a great energy and enthusiasm for this conclave series. So, we are going to start with our first session for this day, which is on Agile Scrum. I would like to introduce our today's first speaker, Ms. Arti Bendre. She possesses 20 years of experience in the IT industry and currently working at FIS as an associate director. She is playing and have played the role of developer, project manager, product manager, data support lead, Q&A manager, and delivery head. So this was a very short introduction of Aarti Bendre ma'am. So I welcome you ma'am to Spectrum, the virtual conclave 2023 of MITSG. Over to you now ma'am.
Thanks, Bhagyashri ma'am. Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure, and I'm very exciting to start the first session. Uh, I hope you are ready as well. Am I audible?
Yes ma'am, you are quite
Yes, ma'am.
audible.
Okay, I will start sharing my screen. In case there is any network issue, please let me know. In which case, I will start sharing. Let me know once you start seeing the screen. I have started with the presentation, and that is what you should be seeing the presentation with the title of Agile Scrum.
Yes, it's visible ma'am. Students, please
Okay,
comment in the
so
chat box. It is
without
visible.
much ado, let box is not visible to me. Request in case you have questions, you can directly ask. I'll be looking at the chat window from time to time. But I will try my best to answer
Ma'am, I
all
guess
the
you need to
questions.
stop your video because there is time lag.
Okay, so without much ado, let's get started. Um, so today we will be talking about Agile Scrum, and what we will be covering is what is Agile and what is Scrum. We will go through the basics of Scrum. Uh, Typically, when we have this kind of training session in our offices or even external training, this is a minimum 4 hour of session, and it could go to even 2 to 3 days. A professional certification courses of 3 days. We will not be able to cover all the things in today's session. We will go through the brief overview, and of course, any questions, feel free to let me know anytime. And then we will go through a case study, and then I'll share the useful links. We will start with the overview of what Agile and Scrum is. We will get into the details of Scrum. We will have a case study, and then I will be sharing some useful links. So before we get into Agile and Scrum, how many of you have worked on Agile, any of the Agile practices or any of Scrum in your past experience? You could raise type in the chat window or even speak.
They are mentioning in the chat box, hardly 2 to 3 students have experienced, but almost other
Bhagesh ma'am,
students are there.
okay, so I Dr. Shantanu saying that I have worked in projects. Have you worked in projects which are in Agile mode? Maybe Scrum, Kanban. Okay, okay, no problem. I see most of you saying that you have worked on projects, but you have not worked on Agile or Scrum or no clue. That's fine. So we will start with the basics uh, and we will take it from there. Thanks, everyone. For uh, this is the definition of agile. But before we get into the definition of agile, um, like a project by definition is something which has an objective. When we start a project, typically we have a date by which we need to complete the project, and then there is an objective which we need to achieve, probably like meeting the client requirements. But I hope yes, we'll start what is agile. So as I said, that project is undertaken with an aim of meeting the client requirements. But as you must have experienced that the client requirements keep on changing. This could be because one is client himself many times does not know what exactly is expected, that vision is not there, and at times because of changing market conditions the requirements change. So if you have a requirements in view for, let's say, I need to deliver something at the end of 1 year. By the end of 1 year, what may happen is that your requirements themselves may change, and then what you spent on, like working on the development or working on the detailed plan requirements, by the time you deliver them, those may have changed, and your project may become, not so infeasible when it actually comes to delivery. Hence the trend in industry is that we will go for something which is iterative development. That means have shorter development cycles, uh, uh, deliver to market more quickly, take feedback from customer, and then make changes to the product, and then again do an iteration and deliver. So this is what is called as iterative development, and agile is a group of methodologies which is based on iterative development. So if you look at agile project management, it refers to three things. Iterative development, you develop something, you deliver to the client, you look at the feasibility, and then get the feedback, and then again make changes and deliver. uh, I am again getting a lot of messages saying that there is a voice break. Can you just give me a couple of seconds? I'll just try changing my headsets and see. Is that fine?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll just change my headset and check if that is going to solve the problem.
Yes, please.
Okay, so okay, so we will again start with Agile and Scrum, just so that there is continuity. As I was mentioning earlier, that Agile is based on three principles. The first principle is that of an iterative development. That means you develop something. The time to market is really short. You develop something to for the client. You deliver it. You get the feedback from the client, and then make changes to the product, and then again. Deliver the next change. So that is what is called as iterative development. What it means is that the requirements are not very well defined at the beginning of the project. You have a general idea of what you want to achieve, but over a period of time, you deliver something, and then again, you keep on refining your requirements and accordingly change your solution. What it also means is that in Agile, there has to be a very high collaboration between the customer and the teams. So this is what Agile is. And Agile, as such, it does not define a specific method of creating the project or executing the project, or rather delivering the entire project. There are a loose set of methodologies. And of which Scrum is one of the agile management framework. Besides Scrum, there are several other frameworks like Kanban, TDD, extreme programming, lean programming, and so on. Scrum and Kanban are the most used frameworks for agile development. Uh, while Agile started as a framework that was being used in software development, Scrum, be it Scrum or Kanban, all these started from software development. But over a period of time, we have realized that the Scrum is or Agile is suited for project development across the industries, and hence these days we are also seeing a lot of projects getting executed in manufacturing industry as well in the Agile mode. Kanban is the method that is more suited for operations or manufacturing or non-software industry. Scrum is mostly used in software development. Um, Are there any questions at this point? Because now we are going to go directly into Scrum.
Uh, uh, Mr. Arti, this is Dr. Ganguly. I have a small query.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, See, we were talking about Scrum, where you have the small iterative development, you have a small components. Now, is it also related to irrespective only the software development or IT related projects? Like, for example, if I am into a building resilience project where I have a small work breakdown structure, so can I call it as a Scrum project on that?
See, Scrum has a specific set of rituals, and we will get into the details of Scrum. But yes, it is not just for software development. You could use it anywhere as long as you have work breakdown structure, and then you execute the work breakdown structure in a particular fashion. You can implement Scrum in any practice, not necessarily software development. As I mentioned earlier, it started with software development, but now it is being used across industries. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, one question is there. Considering if we will consider the manufacturing industry,
Mm-hmm.
so normally means the projects and all things are very clear. Means it is not like that if there will be rough idea and then
Mm-hmm.
time to time it will be get modified. It is not like that. In
Okay.
manufacturing industry, mostly all the things and timeline and everything is very clear for
Okay.
this. How
Mm-hmm.
this agile is we can correlate with the manufacturing industry.
Yes, good question. Two things. While you say that, requirements are very clear, so you know how to execute a project, there could be certain unforeseen situations, like the way when COVID happened, right? I mean, you
Mm.
knew what was there, but all of a sudden COVID came and the entire picture changed, right? In that
Mm.
case, probably it was very essential for the industry to change and adopt new practices, and
Okay.
probably even change and in some cases, I mean, as far as I know, some of the industries like even change their products or move from one like manufacturing of a particular at that time we saw that manufacturing of masks increased, so you had to probably change some things so that you switch your business, make small changes. So this is where, at the time of adopting, Scrum will get used. Secondly, there could be cases wherein all of it, like you have a set process, you are probably, outputting or currently your output is maybe, X units per day, and all of a sudden there is a demand to manufacture 2X units per day. In that case, again, probably you will have to make some changes to the processes, and this is where Agile helps you in adopting to new methodologies. Scrum, as I said, is mostly for software development or cases where the requirements are not clear. For things like operations, wherein, like, the processes are very clear, and you have to output something, that is where Kanban is more suited. Scrum is, I mean, one of the basic differences between Scrum and Kanban is in Scrum, you do everything within a time box. So you say that I am going to deliver something in X amount of time, and I will only take as much work that fits into this X time window. Whereas in Kanban, we limit the amount of work which is in the queue. So for something like assembly lines, Kanban is more suited.
Okay, understood. But during the time of project assessment, as you say that this COVID is the one case, it was
Mm-hmm.
recently added. We are doing normally the risk assessment for
Mm-hmm.
the any kind of project startup. Whatever the risks are there, that risk assessment and the probable plan A, plan B is made accordingly. So
Mm-hmm.
Kanban is okay. Means Kanban is very useful in assembly line. But how this agile is correlated? It was my question. But I
Kanban is
think
a type of agile development only.
yes, understood, understood.
Any other questions?
Good morning,
Uh,
ma'am. Actually,
Arti
what is
ma'am,
the
Yes.
meaning of agile? Actually, I have not understood. And how it is, can you give any one example in how it is used in manufacturing industry?
Okay. Okay, agile. Okay, talking of your question about agile. Let's. I mean, the difference between an agile and what we call as waterfall model is generally in waterfall model, like the end product, and you have a you have detailed plans, detailed design, and then detailed execution of that product. Whereas in agile, you develop something in a very short span of time. You take the feedback from the client, and then again, based on those changes, uh, you make modifications. Now, let me give an example of how agile is more suited, or how agile can be used in manufacturing industry. Let's talk about an example. Again, I'm not talking of something like operations wherein the processes are set, or you exactly know. I mean, let's take an example of a car, like a car manufacturing industry, that initially okay, I have to build Maruti car, Maruti Alto, and the specifications are very clear, and then you start working on it. That is where Kanban is more suited. But if I talk about how it is used, consider an example wherein you are actually designing a car. So you really don't know what kind of features, what is it that the user will like to do, or what is it that really works. And in this case, you will probably create, and like, although I'm not from a manufacturing industry, but I'm sure you must be creating something called as prototype. You have a prototype, you display it, and get feedback. Sorry, you get feedback from the client, and then again you change your prototype. This is what is agile development. Probably once things are settled, and then it becomes more of an operations, then it's not a project, and that is where Kanban comes into picture. uh, does
Ar-
that answer your question?
Thank you, ma'am.
Arti ma'am, this when you talk about this iterative development or in a small, when you give it back to the customers for
Mhm.
his feedback and all. So if
Mhm.
there is a change request, who bears the cost? Is the customer?
This is where yes, I mean, generally agile is more suited for time and material kind of projects rather than a fixed cost development project, in which, or even for fixed cost development, when you come up with the contract, you need to come up with clear terms. What happens typically, again, I'm giving an example of software industry. When we execute software projects, and when we sign these contracts, typically when we come up with like a change request, and the customer says that this is the change request which is at priority, we have an understanding that okay, we are going to take out work of similar size from the product backlog. And this is where at the time of contract negotiations or contract signing, it has to be made very clear that we are going to follow agile, and hence the exact set of requirements are not clear. They are going to evolve, and accordingly we are going to adjust.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, can I move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are going to talk about Scrum today specifically, and we will talk about the principles or the set of rituals which form Scrum. We will talk about the roles and the various ceremonies which are a part of Scrum. Now, rather than taking a case study, again, what I'm gathering is that a lot of the team is new to Scrum, and I think more like there are quite a few who are from non-IT industry. So rather than taking an example from an IT industry, let's talk of a real life situation wherein we will talk about how Scrum can be used. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the presentation here, and I'm going to move to an Excel. Uh, can you see the Excel?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Now let's talk. Now, can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, now let's talk about if you consider, your life as a product, or where you want to take your life. Let's talk that as a product, and we will see how our requirements are changing, and how we need to change to this change in priorities and change in requirements. Can one of you tell me what exactly you will be doing 5 years from now? Anyone?
Hi,
Very
ma'am.
difficult.
Sapna?
Very difficult, right?
Yeah.
You don't even know what you're going to do next month or
Hello.
in 6 months down the line, right?
Yeah, ma'am, this is Sapna here, and
Yes.
I'd like to start, EV vehicle business for logistics. So I think in 5 years from now, I should be owning the company, and I'll be crossing the crore, margin. That's where I see myself.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
No, you said 5 years from now,
Okay,
what?
okay, okay. Yes, tell me.
So I'd like to own a, EV vehicle, fleet services business. So from
Own
5 years,
e-vehicle.
yeah, EV vehicle for logistics, the fleet services.
So basically, you want to start a business of e-vehicles, right? I'm just summarizing it.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. That's great. Uh, in order to do this, and probably this is not the only thing that you have in your mind, definitely business, but other than that, there are other aspects to your life as well, right? I mean, I don't know, but probably you would like to get married, you would like to have kids, and so on and so forth. Like if I'm talking about life as a whole, you don't know exactly what will be the situation, but somewhere around those lines, these are some of the aspects where you will be. You would probably, is that correct? I'm sorry, it's a very personal question, but then this is generalization.
Yeah. So in general, I can answer that. Maybe I would like to make some money in 5 years. Would that work?
Yes, make money. We want to make good money, and we want to probably have your own house, a big house.
Yes.
You probably want a car.
Yes.
I mean, these are generally some things, but we really don't know at the end, like, after 5 years, whether you will be having Maruti Alto or a Mercedes. Well, I wish with all my heart that you own a Mercedes at the end of 5 years, but we don't know.
Yes.
Uh, but we have a general idea of how we want to take our life towards. But if we talk about, in order to achieve this, what we want to do, we will probably have some smaller goals in mind, and we will probably work towards those. So if I ask you what is it that you want to do in the next 1 month, uh, things will probably be more clear. Like probably one thing that you will have to do in this 1 month is probably attend all this conclave sessions,
Yes.
right? uh,
Mhm.
you may probably be having some kind of assignments um, in uh, in your course which you will have to complete.
Yes. Assignments, then exams. Yeah, assignments and project also. Third, sem, I have to come up with project.
Correct. And in order to meet some of your other goals which you have listed, like you want a car or you have your e-vehicle registration, probably you would need a driving license if you don't have one.
Mm-hmm. I have one already.
Okay. Um yeah. Okay, in which case probably you would like to try your hands at different cars just
Yes,
to see. You want to own a car, so probably you will just want to try something, right?
that's right. Yeah.
So, and then probably, you may have that eye on the latest iPhone model which you want to purchase, which will probably help in your goal of getting married or finding a suitable boyfriend or girlfriend. Again, this is not specifically for you, but most of you probably will have something along those lines,
Yeah.
and probably get the latest dress. This is what probably you want to do in one next 1 month. And as you work on each month on month, all of these will contribute towards your final product. And do you think at the end of 5 years, once you have achieved all this, your product or your life is really set? I mean, life कभी set नहीं होती, right? ये सब
Yes.
मिलेगा, you will probably have a different set of requirements for your life.
Yes.
At that time, probably you would like to take your business like international or expand into 5 states, and you would like to own a bigger house, a bigger car, want to go on international trips, right? So your product is continuously evolving, and
Yes.
the only thing that you can control is probably these items, which are more like more short term items. You keep on working on these, you add to your wish list, and then which will help towards your final product.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of or Scrum methodology, this is what is called as a product backlog. Or product backlog is the list of items which are a list of requirements which are essential to build your product. I think somebody mentioned about work breakdown structure. So work breakdown structure is nothing but the product requirements. It's a list of product requirements. Okay. In Scrum methodology, we generally call them as stories, user stories. There is a particular format of writing user stories, but today we are not going to dwell into those user stories, but we will just say that user stories is nothing but a set of requirements. They will keep on evolving over time. Some of the stories may become obsolete, some of the stories may get added, and this process of continuously maintaining the product backlog is called as backlog refinement. So one of the most important artifacts of Scrum is this product backlog, which evolves over the life of a product. You will never have a situation wherein, probably at the start of the project, yes, your product backlog is empty, but as soon as you kickstart the project, throughout the life, as long as there is a product, there is going to be a product backlog. Okay. And the role or the person who is responsible for maintaining a product backlog is called a product owner. He is responsible for adding items to this product backlog. He is responsible for updating the product backlog. He is responsible for prioritizing the items in the product backlog. Again, when I'm saying it's he or she, but just one person who is allocated to that. And then product owner is somebody who is very close to the customers. So one thing is he has to be, he's somebody who is customer facing, so he knows what the customer wants. He also, while he may not be technical, but he certainly needs to be able to translate the customer requirements into the features or into a language which the development team understands. So we have looked at two terms, product backlog and product owner. Any questions so far?
Could you repeat the product backlog, what it is?
Product backlog is the set of requirements which are required to develop our product. We continue to add items to the product backlog. Some items which may get obsolete, we continue to remove them, or we may continue to modify them. And this is, this is generally prioritized. At least, the first 10 to 15 items are prioritized so that we always pick from the top of the product backlog. These are user stories, these are requirements, or you could probably even say, the top level of your work breakdown structure.
Thank you.
What is the difference between story and backlog?
A backlog consists of user stories. So if you see these line items, right now in my product backlog, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 user stories. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what happens is, like, generally, like when we start a project, the product owner will create this set of the initial set of product backlog. It will create the initial product backlog, initial set of user stories. Now it is the development team who is going to work on the product backlog, or the items in the product backlog. Now, when I'm saying development team, it is a cross-functional team. That means all the people who are responsible for delivering that product. So, although I call it as a development team, it could be uh, like, different roles are there in the development team. There would be probably some architects, some UI designers, some developers, some testers, then some people who are the release engineers, or who are actually responsible for deploying the product, tech writers, or people who create the documentation. All of them form a part of the product backlog, and they are responsible for executing the items in the product backlog. That's the second role, that is of a development team. Generally, it is recommended that the Scrum team should not be, or the development team should not be more than 10. And it has to be cross-functional. That means the entire team is working on that Scrum project and not working on anything else. They are dedicated to this project. Okay. Now what happens is, when we in Scrum, it is expected that we start working in sprints. Sprints is nothing but a small time box, or a small frame of time, in which the development team picks items from the product backlog and starts working on them. Okay. When we start the project, at the onset of it, the team decides what is going to be my sprint length. For software industry, it is generally between 2 weeks to 4 weeks. It will never exceed, it should not exceed 4 weeks. It should not be less than 2 weeks, because otherwise work becomes it becomes very, there is a lot of project administration overhead. And then once you decide, you cannot really change the length of the sprint. You have to work. Let's say we have decided on a 2 week sprint, then all items we will work on would be in 2 weeks of sprint. Okay. So what happens is, when we start with the first sprint, or when we start a sprint, the first ceremony that is involved is a sprint planning. This is where the entire development team and the product owner decide that what is it that I am going to pick up for the next one sprint. What are the items which are more important? So the product owner will set the sprint goal, and we will start working, or the development team will start working towards that. Any questions?
Arti ma'am, can you take a real life example, maybe from your IT industry only, and show us how this sprint planning takes place? Thank you.
Okay, will that help? I thought, given the cross-functional, this is something which will help, but I don't mind taking an example from an IT industry. Let's go for building a system like Uber. Is that something that will help? We are building a system which is similar to Uber.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so probably once you start with an Uber system, you want to develop an app which is very similar to Uber app. I want to develop an Uber app. Okay. What probably would be the set of requirements which will, which will be more relevant in an Uber app? Probably to begin with, I should have a user login. Again, I am hoping that all of you agree that you would rather have this Uber app rather than a real life example rather than the case study that I was talking about. Yes, no? Are we all okay with Uber app?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, you can carry out.
Okay, so we will go with the Uber app. When we are talking of Uber app, we will probably have something like a user login, wherein the user should be able to log in. We will have something like a driver login, wherein the driver will be able to, register their vehicles. We should have probably the initial set of requirements will be the user should be able to enter, the user should be able to enter the vehicle, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the vehicle ID, the vehicle number, the vehicle registration, the ve the start and end points of the journey. The user should be able to or the application should be able to search the cab which is most relevant, and user should be able to select the uh, cab, call the driver, and then the user should be able to actually like end the trip right now by paying. Now, what happens is this is probably my initial set of requirements. There probably will be, I mean, as we go through it, probably there should be more features here. I should be able to give user rating. Sorry, I mean, give rating of a driver. The driver should be able to give the rating of a user. I should be able to know the vaccination status. I should be able to see the driver photo and so on and so forth. These are some of the requirements. But if you see the core, if I want to market or if I want to create an MVP, what is called as minimal viable product, probably the product owner decides that, these are my initial set of requirements. Okay, are we clear so far? Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, so this is my product backlog. I have started with the development team, and I have started with my sprint planning, in which now see what will happen is we are deciding on 2 week sprint. Okay, when we are deciding on a 2 week sprint, not all these features are going to be developed in 2 weeks. Okay, but the product owner will say that the sprint goal, in this case, my sprint goal is to be able to develop or to be able to create the login screens. Okay, so we start with the sprint goal of creating login screens. That is my sprint goal, and hence if you see that my stories are user login and driver login. So this, in the sprint planning meeting, the user says, or the the product owner says that I as a user, I should be able to log in. As a driver, my second story is as a driver, I should be able to log in. We pick up the first story and we start grooming it. The story is that I should be able to log in. Now, is this story very clear, or are there any are there any more features, or are there any questions which the development team will have? Or are there any questions? Let's say you are the development team. What kind of questions will be there?
Arti ma'am, there are just two quick clarifications I need.
Okay.
This from serial number 5 to serial number 11. Are they, each one of them is a sprint?
No, they are user stories.
These are user stories. Okay, fine. Now, when you talk about a product backlog and compare with user stories, do you also think that if you have developed a similar kind of a thing in the past, which is already there in your database as a user story, and you may not want to reinvent the wheel and want to see and make some corrections in that user stories or something, or it is always a fresh one?
Not necessary. So see, right now here we are talking of creating the product, right? But there could be cases wherein we have, in this case right now, we are having user login. Okay, in which case, I was just about to come to that. Right now, you are just probably having, I should be able to log in using my telephone number. And then you may want to expand that. Like right now, your app is only supporting login via phone number. But maybe you want to expand your login story to accommodate login via your Gmail ID. So in that case, I will probably have a story which is related to, I'm going to add an item in the product backlog which says that modify the login screen so that it allows login using Gmail ID. Uh, does that answer your question? So when we are starting from scratch, nothing is built. But if your product is already existing, the user story is the work that you want to do. What is it that you want to modify? Again, another example from real life would be that again, this is something which probably like which we have done in our projects in the past. That we had and like we had a support. I mean, there was a graph that was getting displayed, and we were supporting only line charts and line and bar charts. We wanted to expand it to also include pie charts. So, then the user stories would be something similar to, I mean, the user story would be currently in the system, there is a drop down for, I mean, currently the system supports rendering only line and bar charts. Please, the user stories, as a user, I should also be able to view the data in the form of a pie chart. So that's a modification to the existing product, to the system, and hence that's a new requirement or a new user story which gets added to the product backlog. Does that help?
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so
Hello, madam. I have a question.
yes.
So user story is basically what the users have experienced in the past, and how about integrating the future technology, or say like AI? Is that also
Yes,
considered
any
in?
see user story. I mean, we call it user story, but you should probably just think of it as a requirement. So, I mean, it's there's a certain way in which it is written. Hence, it is called user story because generally it says, as a user, I should be able to do something. But yes, I mean, in this feature, probably I would say as a user, as a user, I should be able to get help from chatbot. That becomes my user story.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, but see what happens, and that's why I mean this prioritization is very important, because if we are developing a product from scratch, do you think we will work on this line number 13 first or line number 5 first? When we are starting a product from scratch, nothing is developed.
It should start from line number 5.
Correct. And then as we as I said, as we develop, like once you have a product, what then you can probably think of what are the other features, and that is where probably you will say, okay, now I'm able to do basic booking. So I mean, basic booking and a basic navigation is there. So now I will probably have a feature that is called integrating chatbot. I will also probably say that I mean, this is probably the advanced stages of a product wherein your main product is already built. You will say, okay, I mean, for my product, safety is the USP. So probably I should have as a user, I should have the ability to send SOS message. Uh, at one click. I shouldn't have to unlock my phone, but just on the power of button, I should be able to send like a help message probably to my contacts, right? So these are some of the advanced features. As we evolve the product, some of these features will come to the top of the backlog, and then again at that time there will be decisions that has to be taken. What is more important for me? I mean, certainly these two product. I mean, these two, line number 13 and 14, is something which are important once your basic product is developed. But then, should I go with integration with the chatbot first, or should I go with security features first? Now, these are some of the things which the product owner, along with the customer, decides what is my priority. If the customer says, my USP, or, I want to differentiate this app from Uber because it should have state of art security facilities. In that case, I will probably go for this SOS message first. Right. But if the user wants to say that, hey, the help, and it's very difficult to get help from Uber, and hence the competitive edge for my product is basically user should be able to quickly get help. In that case, I'll probably go for chatbot first. Right. Again, I don't know.
Arti ma'am,
Yes.
for this serial number 13 and 14, do you also conduct some kind of a pilot to gain more customer experience and the changes which are required?
Yes, there are a lot of things which are done. See, the product owner, as I said, product owner is somebody who sits very close to the customer requirements. He has to get the pulse of the requirements, right? So there are that probably, I'm not covering in this session, but that is something which is in the there is a separate product owner training in which we talk about how a product owner should come up with this set of product backlog as well as prioritizing it. There will be some kind of surveys, there will be some kind of focused workshops, some prototyping that is done, interviews in which you decide what is it that is more important. But considering our time frame, we are not keeping it in this session.
Ma'am, one question. So if you say that user stories are usually defining what the requirement is, then why there is a need of sprint goal then if user stories tells us everything?
Yeah. Now, see, look at this. These are all my user stories, right? But do you think I will, and I have a 2-week sprint. Do you think we will be able to complete all of this in 2 weeks? This is a development, so we have to develop the entire product in 2 weeks. Do you think it is possible?
No.
In that case, we need to do some kind of prioritization. So sprint is something in which we say, okay, what is it that we will cover in one sprint, in current sprint? And in that case, again, it is up to the prioritization, because see, what happens is sometimes, right now we have not again, let's consider what is it that we want to achieve in this sprint? What are the set of stories which I want to complete in this? And since I'm talking that creating login screens is my sprint goal, I will probably be picking up the stories which are related to login. I will probably, although this enter, start, and endpoint, search the cab, which is most relevant, they are also a part of my MVP of my product. The first release should have this. I'm not going to pick for the current sprint.
Got it, ma'am.
Okay, so as I said, creating login screens, I should be able to log in. This is what the product owner explains. At this time, if there are any questions, the team will ask them. What kind of questions do you think the team will have in this question? As a user, I should be able to log in. Any questions, or are you clear on the requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you clear?
Clear so far.
Yes.
I myself had some questions. How will I be logging in? As I said, will I be logging in using phone number? Will I be logging in using my Gmail ID? Or will I be logging in, I have to create a separate user ID and password, which is, only for this Uber app?
So from the customer stories or user stories, I think I should go for a mobile number with an OTP authentication.
No, but where is it that we have said that customer is asking for a mobile number?
Okay.
See, the customer may say, my mobile number is very sacred to me. I have seen lots of cases that once I give my mobile number, I get spammed. So I don't want to share my mobile number. That could be a user story, right? In which case my app will just not have the feature to logging using phone number.
Very right.
Ma'am, as an app creator, we cannot decide what credentials, because most of the time what happens if we log into Uber, it just asks for phone number. It does, or email ID. They give those two options. So we have to create that options so that.
Correct. So which means what I'm now going to do, see, these are the kind of questions which the users or the development team will ask. Not the users, the development team will ask. How should I be able to log in? So this is where what I do is I'm refining my product backlog, or I'm creating some additional stories or breaking this story into several sub-stories. As a user, I should be able to log in using phone number. These, again, everything is still a part of my user story. Using Gmail ID. Using Uber specific user ID and password.
Madam?
Yes.
Wouldn't this be a part of the product product
Yes, it
backlog
will be a
itself.
part of product backlog. Yes, I'm coming to that. You're absolutely right. So this becomes, I'm sorry, rather than entering it here, what happens is this user login, I have added these stories to the product backlog. And see, there could be cases. I mean, again, it is up to the prior. This is again where prioritization comes into picture. And, the product owner may say that, for this feature, I mean, for my first release, what is important is I should be able to log in using my phone number and my Gmail ID. Logging using specific user ID or logging using Facebook is something which I don't want to do. So this story, although it's a good feature to have, I am moving it to the bottom of the backlog. But this is my product backlog. This story, I mean, again, I have refined, so I'm going to delete this story, and now this becomes my user story. Okay, and then I am selecting these stories as part of my login phone number. Okay. And then probably when we are talking of login using phone number, now the team says, and then this is where a Scrum, a product owner will also define that what does it mean that as a user I should be, let me just add it over here. These are my user stories. This is my acceptance criteria. Okay, when will you say that my acceptance criteria is, or when will I really say that my user story is complete? Or here, for this to be accepted, or when I say that I'm really able to log in, user entering phone number and receiving OTP, user enters the OTP and login successful message is displayed. Like, this is what my acceptance criteria is. If I complete all of this, only then I will say that this login using phone number is successful. Okay, this is what the acceptance criteria. Now based on this, again for Gmail, and this is something, again, defining the acceptance criteria is the role of a product owner. Similarly for Gmail ID, probably it is going to be similar thing, but user has to, the product owner has to enter this for like all the user stories. Okay. And then the same goes for driver. So I've picked up these two stories here. Similarly, driver login, I'm not putting in the acceptance criteria in the interest of time. Are we clear so far? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, please.
Yes. Now what happens is, see, now this is something then the team actually does an estimation of how long it will take to develop all of these. Let's say we're talking of 2 week sprint. Let's say the team says that this is something which is going to take me 5 days. This story is also something which is going to take me 5 days, and driver login is also going to take me 5 days. Okay, that means my sprint is only of 10 days. But I have actually picked up stories which are worth 15 days. This is then the product owner decides the priority, that he says that, okay, you know what, for this sprint, although it is login screen, I will be satisfied of user logging in using phone number and the driver logging in using his phone number. This story, I am moving it back into the product backlog. It's not a part of my sprint backlog. So this is what is called as a sprint backlog. These are the items which the team decides to take in the current sprint. Okay. Clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, a few things which we need to remember while taking the stories or while defining the stories. As we have seen that, we have already broken the user ID story into a small story of phone number, Gmail, specific user ID and password, etc. The one thing that is important, which is one of the, the core principles of Scrum is when we are defining a user story, end-to-end development has to be is a part of that user story, which means at the end of the sprint, uh, whatever is developed in the product or whatever you have made changes to the product, they should be in a state that you can easily ship them or you can actually release them as a release. Whether we will actually release them, that's the product owner's call, but you cannot have something that is half done. So you cannot really say that, okay, in this sprint, I will just design, I will just create my wireframes, but the actual integration with the backend is something which I will be doing in the next sprint. It has to be an end-to-end story. And second thing is, you can still say that, I'm just going to use some kind of mock-ups. I'm going to use some kind of pseudocode and assume a few things, just take it from the backup by using stubs, but it has to be end-to-end development. You cannot say, I'm going to just design in one sprint, I'm going to develop in the next sprint, I'm going to test in the third sprint. That does not happen. It has to be an end-to-end delivery, is one feature of a user story. The second feature is that, generally, for the sake of simplicity, I've taken 5 days of sprint. It is generally recommended that when you break up these stories, you define them into something which can be easily achieved in a day. So that it becomes easier to track and you become crystal clear. That is where, you have complete clarity. In situations like this, invariably you will end up in situations wherein once you start developing, you may realize that some things I have not clarified. And hence the sprint planning is very important because you really get into the details of the requirements. And the third, just give me a minute. The third important feature of a user story, as I said, is it has to be end-to-end. It has to be it has to be clearly defined. And the third is, once you say that the story is complete or done, it has to be completely done. You cannot really say it is at the end of the sprint, you cannot really say my work is 50% complete. It's either complete or it's not complete. Is it clear so far?
Yes, ma'am. Clear so far.
Okay, so now what we have said is only, I'm going to pick up these 2 user stories in this sprint. And then the team starts working on this. It's a 2-week sprint. 2 important ceremonies here, or 2 important aspects here. Once the team starts working in a sprint, or once the sprint starts, there is one important ceremony which is called a daily stand-up. Many teams just call it daily scrum, but it's actually a daily stand-up. This is nothing but a meeting in which the entire team meets, and then the teams gives a typically it's a status update in which every team member is supposed to answer 3 questions. What is it that I have done yesterday? Second question, what is it that I'm going to do today? And the third question is, are there any impediments? Or impediments means, are there any blockers which are preventing me to do my work? Okay. This is something which is basically essential to maintain tracking. Are we really on track for completing the sprint? So that the team gets an idea of where we are and then take corrective actions as and when required. Again, in the interest of time, we are not really going to talk about the controlling phase of a project with respect to sprint. So we are not really going to talk about burn up or burn down charts, sprint velocity, etc. The links which I have provided will have all those details. But for now, just remember that, this is something which helps in tracking. And one important role here, we have talked about product owner, we have talked about the developer. The third important role in the sprint is that of a Scrum Master. Scrum Master generally hosts this meeting, although they are meant for the development team. Scrum Master plays 2 important roles. once the sprint starts, it is expected that the team entirely focuses on the items which are taken in the sprint backlog. It is Scrum Master's responsibility to protect the team from any external interferences or any requirements which may come up in the middle of the sprint. Let's just say that the team has started working on this, and the product owner all of a sudden says that, hey, you know what, we have talked about this, about using phone number, and we said that I should be able to use phone number and I should be able to receive OTP via SMS. But abhi, given the current context, I think rather than receiving OTP over SMS, I should also have the facility of receiving OTP on WhatsApp. This is again a hypothetical example, okay? But the product owner says, let's change the user story कि ये OTP SMS पे नहीं, WhatsApp पे आना चाहिए. This is where the Scrum Master will interfere and say, boss, आपने पहले acceptance criteria बोल दिया है, अभी कुछ नहीं change हो सकता. ये story ऐसे ही रहने दो. Product backlog में add a new story wherein I will say that, okay, as a user, I should be able to log in using phone number and I should receive an OTP on WhatsApp. So please add this as a user story, and in the next sprint, you can prioritize it as and the way you want. So this is how the Scrum Master will protect the team from any external interferences so that the team can really focus on the items in the sprint backlog.
Ma'am, one question is there. Ideally, who will be the Scrum Master in case of the industry? We can consider who will be the Scrum Master specifically. Is it the product manager or like that?
It could be generally like Scrum Master is probably. See, if you look at product manager as somebody who manages the triple constraint of scope, cost, and time, then product owner is considered as a product manager. But if you talk more from somebody who controls the schedule, then it's the Scrum Master. Then the project manager, somebody who is very good at execution and controlling of projects. By that definition, yes, it's a project manager. Generally, okay. Scrum Master is not.
Scrum Master will be the only the team CFT members only there in between that.
Can I just complete? Give me
yeah, sure.
So yes, Scrum Master will generally be the project manager. Second thing is generally it is recommended that Scrum Master should not be the reporting manager of the team, because otherwise team may hesitate to come up with impediments and issues. Sorry, please go ahead. You had some questions.
Yeah, I just asked that. Then the Scrum Master would be the CFT member only in between.
CFT?
That cross-functional team.
No, generally cross-functional team is somebody who will actually work on execution, who will work on the product. This is this is a Scrum Master is a role which Scrum or Sprint defines. You could say, and his role is generally, as I said, to ensure that the sprint execution happens smoothly. More closer to project manager rather
maybe
than
a top management person, we can say. Means,
as I said, generally not a top management person. This is a role that specifically Scrum or Agile defines, because when it comes to top management, there is a tendency for the Scrum, for the top for the team also, they may hesitate to come up with impediments. I'll come to impediments now to talk about the blockers, or to talk about Scrum Master also attends the status meeting. Team may not be more open, so it's not generally from the top management. This is a role which is specifically there in Agile or Scrum project development, and in a traditional waterfall model, it comes closer to project manager. It comes closer to the role of a mentor, if you have one. Okay, but again, I'm talking of ideal world in which the manager or a part of the team is not Scrum Master. Although when it comes to real life situations, these things do happen, but that is not something which is expected.
Madam, one small doubt, Madam. Suresh here.
Yep.
Madam, this product owner is senior in the hierarchy, or the Scrum Master, or so-called the project manager is senior?
No, this is a flat hierarchy. All three play equal roles. So typically a product owner would be somebody from a sales. As I said, product owner is somebody who is very close to customers.
Okay.
So as I said, and see, if you go by the PMI definition of project management, a project manager is somebody who manages the triple constraints of scope, uh, cost, and schedule. Right. So what is managing cost? Deciding the priorities. So in that sense, a product owner can also be a project manager. Right, who is the person who is responsible, like in case of any scopes, again I'm going by the PMI definition, who is the person who is responsible for going to the client in case there is a slip of schedule. Again, it is the project manager. So again, by that definition, product owner is a project manager. But more from an execution point of view, it like execution and control, it's the Scrum Master. So you could say the role of like in Scrum methodology, the role of a project manager is split into two. One is product owner, who is responsible for managing the triple constraints, and a Scrum Master who is responsible for the execution and control.
Okay, ma'am. Right.
And in terms of hierarchy, again, it is expected that there is no reporting relationship between the development team, the product owner, and the Scrum Master. Again, this is ideal world. In real life situations, things may change, but that is what Scrum defines.
Okay, madam, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So as I said that first responsibility of the Scrum Master is to prevent this scope creep. Or prevent external factors influencing the sprint backlog. The Scrum Master should let the team focus on the sprint goal or on the sprint backlog, on items in the sprint. And the second role is work on impediments. Impediments are nothing but blockers that come in the way. So I am working on this development, development story, and all of a sudden my PC crashes. I'm not able to do development, right? I will not be able to do coding if I don't have a PC. Then it is the team's responsibility to tell the Scrum Master that, hey, there is an impediment, my PC has crashed, and the it is like Scrum Master will then liaise with all the interfaces. The Scrum Master will liaise with IT team, will make sure that he gets the sprint, the user gets the PC on time. So two roles: protecting the team from external interferences and working on blocker or impediments, as it is called, resolution. Okay. Hey, Bhagyashree ma'am, I have a question for you. Again, in the interest of time, I know there were some initial issues by which we have already seen a delay. We are 10 minutes right now we have 10 minutes short. How should we do it? Do I have any additional time, or is it time box and I cannot extend?
Yes, ma'am, you can extend till 11:05, max 11:10. Okay. Because we are going to have a session at 11:30, next session.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. So we talked about sprint. We talked about a daily stand-up. Okay. This is what the daily stand-up looks. Daily stand-up, and then the team works on the items in the sprint. At the end of the sprint, there is what is called as a sprint review. A sprint review is nothing but a demo of the items which we have delivered. And this is where the user, this is again attended by all the stakeholders. The stakeholders include definitely the development team, because development team will give the demo, the product owner. At times, depending upon what kind of relation is the customer, also attends the sprint demos or the sprint review meetings. Again, in cases wherein there is a very high degree of collaboration. And probably even folks from the support team, because they have to support this product, and any other stakeholders that are related. In this, a demo is given of the feature that is developed, all the features that are developed, and then a decision is taken whether this is something which is acceptable or not. Is this story working as expected, or is this story not delivered as expected? It is not meeting the acceptance criteria, and hence it should be rejected. A couple of things here. Three outcomes are possible, or it's actually two. One outcome is, yes, we are accepting the story, and hence it is accepted, we actually call that the story is done. The second outcome is the user, the user finds out that, during the demo, we find out that story is something which is not meeting the requirements. Like you had said that, okay, I will be able to log in using phone number, but when I actually I have done the development, I am realizing that the development was done such that you enter any 10-digit number, uh, or a user enters an invalid OTP, even then it gives a message of successful, successful login. So this story is certainly not expected. In that case, the story is spilled over. That means again it goes to the backlog, product backlog. Again, very important thing, as I mentioned earlier, the story is either done or it is not done. There is nothing like partially done. So once you realize that, this login message is given, even if I enter incorrect message, the entire story gets spilled over. The third outcome is, as I said, this story, yes, it got accepted. But while we were working on this story, we realized that probably, there is a new requirement or probably enhancement that, yes, I'm able to log in using phone number only if the valid OTP is entered, only then it is allowing me to log in. All that is done. But you know what, the screen, the login screen, right now it is light blue in color. Probably if the screen was dark blue, it would have looked much better. In which case, I will just enter a user story that change the login screen to dark blue. Okay. So again, you see at this stage, we have, this backlog, if you see, even during the course of the sprint, the backlog has been groomed or has been refined. That means new stories have been added twice, wherein I identified a new requirement, and I also identified an enhancement to the story that was already delivered. This is a sprint review. And then once the stories are accepted, they move to done, and then of course we are able to, in the next sprint we will take from the next sprint. The other important ceremony is that of a sprint retrospective. The sprint retrospective is something where sprint retrospective is attended by the development team only, in which they do an analysis of what went right and what went wrong. So what are the changes that we should be doing to our processes, to our people, to our technology, so that we continue to do better. These are the things that we should continue doing. What went well, we should stop doing, we did not do well, or we can change doing. For example, the team realized that, when I was working, what went well was really the fact that I had an exact understanding, or I had a mobile simulator which will let me send SMS. And then the team says, okay, these are the kind of simulators that I need. It should be available with me. And hence they make a note of it so that it helps in the future. What did not go well was that, there was a story about blue screen, changing the screen, which means our user, we need better UI designing and a better approval. So this is a change in process. So this is what is sprint retrospection. Okay, and then the sprint gets closed, and then again the team starts working on the next sprint. The next sprint, again, we follow the same process. Now, if you see that, these are the stories. This is the product backlog, but the product owner may have already said that, okay, this is something which was at the top of the sprint, but this is not really important to me. So I will be, logging this. I will move to the bottom of the backlog. And, probably what has happened is that all of a sudden the government has mandated that for every phone number that you are storing, a KYC is, if you're storing any kind of phone number in the system, KYC is mandatory. Then probably, since we are already talking about phone number here, we may a completely new requirement, which was something which we had not even thought of earlier, may come up, and it may take the top of the sprint, that update KYC, because we will not be able. This is regulatory. We will not be able to launch our product if we are not having KYC details. So this comes at the top of the backlog. And hence, earlier, if you see, there was something which was related to phone number and WhatsApp. Uh, I mean, the product owner may say, no, this is no longer a priority, but KYC is a priority. And then the team moves on, working in sprints. Again, as I said early, once the MVP is delivered, generally it comes to release management and then overall evolving the product. This in nutshell is how a sprint works. There are a lot of things which we did not cover. I think as some of you mentioned, how does the product owner work or determine the priority? That actually is a different session in itself, because that is a part of a product owner training. We have not at all covered the controlling part of it, like how estimation happens. There is something called as playing poker, which we have not covered. As I said, it takes 4 hours to minimum 4 hours to complete, this kind of session, a sprint overview session. We have not covered estimation techniques. We have not covered the controlling, the charts, the sprint velocity, and estimation, and burn up, burn down. But the links that I'll be sharing towards the end of this will have all those details, so you can go through it in your leisure.
Madam, Suresh here.
That is what it is. Any questions?
Madam, one small doubt, Madam Suresh.
Yeah.
Madam, up to what level the coding skills or the coding expertise is required in this process, Madam?
See, if you talk about Scrum methodology, coding is not required. But obviously, the development team, again, here we have taken an example of a software development, right? So development team is the team who is actually working on this development, right? They have to be out and out developers. But if you're talking of Scrum methodology or a Scrum master or the role of a Scrum master or a product owner, they need not be techies.
Scrum master need not have any coding experience, Madam?
No, need not. He should be Scrum master is somebody who should be very good at execution and controlling. He need not be a coder.
And how about the product owner, Madam?
Product owner also. In fact, product owner will not even look at the code. Product owner is somebody who has to be very clear on the customer pulse. He has to be very close to what the customer needs. He should be able to explain the requirements to the development team, but that explanation should come in non-technical terms. If you look over here, whatever I have entered, this is what the product owner does. There is nothing technical.
Yes,
right? The product owner will not say that I need you to use Java or I need you to use Angular.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, madam. So when you said at the end of the sprint, when the sprint review, so if there's a problem with the product or the deliverable, so when the sprint is closed and we start from the scratch with the new sprint?
See, even if there is no problem, the sprint is closed and we start with a new sprint. The only thing is if the sprint is, if there is a problem with the deliverable, as we said here somewhere, right? That example was given that we developed this using phone number, but what we realized was that the phone number, it was always allowing you to log in, even if that OTP was invalid. In that case, we are moving this story to the backlog and then it has to be again redone. Yes, what it means is, for doing for this is what is typically called as rework, right? So we are working on defects in this case. This is something which becomes a part of controlling, because then what clearly if you are if your team has more, if all your stories are getting either spilled over or they are again moving into backlog, you will clearly not be able to deliver on the product goals. In this case, there is a delay, so you need to work on it. This is where again Scrum Master comes into picture. Scrum Master has to work with product owner in identifying. Even in waterfall projects, what happens if there is a delay? We need to work with the customer. Right? At the same time, we also need to tell the team that, boss, please change your processes. Retrospective, wahan pe kaam aa jata hai ki, okay, why did this story get spilled over? What is it? Why is it that we did not do a correct review? right? Why is it that our test cases were not in, like, did not catch this? These are some of the things which will become a part of retrospection. And then we take corrective actions. Retrospection is a very important ceremony. We take action so that this does not happen in future. But sprint always closes at the end of 2 weeks. I mean, at the end of the time box. In fact, all the ceremonies close at the end of time box. There is, as I said, there is nothing like, अरे, ये बस 5 मिनट का काम बाकी है, तो एक दिन बढ़ा दो, मेरी story complete हो जाएगी. नहीं. 2 weeks हो गए, sprint is over. If you have not worked on it, your entire story gets spilled over. And that's why, as I said, it is very important when we are breaking these stories into smaller stories, we should define them such that generally they get over within a day or so. And this is something which requires practice. It is a mindset, like it is changing from a waterfall model to Scrum model takes time. Somewhere close to 6 months to 1 year, and it has to be, the entire management has to approve it and should be on board, because it's a different way of working.
Got it. Thank you.
Any question? Our time box is going to end in 2 minutes.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So we can have one last question, ma'am, so that we can go towards the end of the session. So I think Satish sir has one last question, so we can take his question as the last one. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good morning, madam, and it's a nice session. We are working on waterfall methodology. So how you deal with delay analysis? You see, there is a delay in what we have to do. So
yes,
who will take responsibility and how it is managed in this Agile Scrum?
Yes.
Agile.
Again, that is something which probably, I mean, how delays are, I mean, again, I'm giving a very quick overview, but this is something, one, as retrospection, the team has to work, identify and see what can be done to avoid it. Two, there will be times wherein we realize that, for whatever reason, and again, this is an example, real life example that I am giving, that what happens is you realize for whatever reasons, that you will not be able to meet the timeline. This is where, again, the product owner, being the customer facing role, he has to take that tough call wherein you go to the customer, you work with him, and you come up with the new dates. Invariably, when the projects delay, what happens is, again, in this case, you work with the customer, identify what are the requirements that must be met, and then you prioritize and work on those requirements. At the same time, add new members. Typically, what happens in when projects go wrong, something similar have to be done, but the way you do it is very different. But again, as I said, it is very difficult to explain it in a 1.5 hour session. It's a part of controlling, and probably, this we can take as, if we consider this session as one sprint, we can take as a backlog item for the next sprint. And whenever we have the next session, we can do it. But right now, I am moving this question to the product backlog.
Madam, just one final question, madam. How these various sprints or the various stories are integrated and it finally becomes a full-fledged successful project or a product, madam? Is there anybody who coordinates all these activities, individual activities?
Scrum Master. Scrum Master is responsible for maintaining that all the rituals are maintained. We, of course, have tools. Jira is something which is being used for software project management in Agile. That is being used widely. We have Confluence and other tools as well. But it's the Scrum Master's responsibility to ensure that the Scrum practices are being adhered to.
Well, Scrum Master may be in charge for one particular story only.
No, for this entire sprint. And when I'm talking of entire sprint, it is sprint after sprint.
Means all the activities connected with that particular product development and involving all various stories, madam, or various backlogs. You mean to say, madam?
See, what happens, again, this is really the last question. We have already expired, but a time limit. But this is where, as I said, Scrum Master is responsible for the process. It's the product owner. What happens is, generally in large organizations, we have, for a product, there could be several sprints with a different, product owner, Scrum Master, and development team working simultaneously on a product. These are also some of the things which are possible in bigger projects in real life scenario. especially in manufacturing, it does happen. Even in bigger, even in our case, we have seen that, if there are various parts of a product, we have cases wherein one team is responsible, like one scrum team for one module, other scrum team for other module. These are some of the things, but again, these are some of the advanced concepts of an agile or a scrum methodology. We have something called as safe agile, which works on scrum of scrums, which is out of the scope for a 1.5 hour session. This can be considered more like an introduction.
Okay.
Just small
one. Yes, madam.
Can I ask?
I just want to make sure that you have this, you capture this. If you want, please take a screenshot, because these are the links which I wanted to share with you, which will give much in-depth analysis or in-depth details of what we have talked. This was probably just a bird's eye view.
Ma'am, could you paste these links in the chat, because it would be easier?
Sure, I will do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Ma'am, can I ask one small question? So if when we are creating sub-stories,
I'm sorry, but we have exhausted our time box. I would say that you can send your questions to Bhagyashri ma'am, and I will try to answer them best in a forum that she sees, more suitable.
Definitely.
Yes, ma'am. So sorry for that, because students, we do have another session lined up exactly at 11:30. So also the time has exceeded for this session as well. So before proposing the formal vote of thanks, I would request Arti ma'am to switch on her camera so that we can have a quick and good snapshot with you and with our students, ma'am. Can we have the video on of yours?
And before that, ma'am, requesting you to stop sharing your screen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful interacting with you. It was very interactive, and thanks for all the enthusiasm on a Sunday morning.
Okay. So team, are you ready? Okay. So team, are you ready? Can we have a nice screenshot?
Done.
Thank you.
Thanks. It was wonderful interacting with all of you.
Yes. So before proposing the vote of thanks, students, please wait till the end. There are some important announcements for you all. And ma'am, it was an honor and privilege to have you for the Spectrum, that is the virtual conclave of MIT SD 2023. Thank you so much for taking out your time, and your insights regarding the Agile or Scrum was truly valuable. Also, the basics which you shared with the students, because most of them were not aware, as I was also not aware, because it was new for me as well. So the basic which you shared, the concepts of the methodologies, and the real-time case study which you had on Excel, that was really helpful. So thank you so much. And we would love to have many more insightful sessions of yours in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Looking forward to those sessions.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a nice time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I can drop off now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.